welcome to this week's episode of the Comic Watchers Show, episode 57 coming at ya. I am Matt from Oklahoma City. With me, as always, are my fellow watchers, Mike Eakins from West Virginia, or actually just regular Virginia, but you know, what's the difference? And coming at us from Carthage, Texas, a town once voted 17th best town in America to get roofied in, Nick Osborne. Guys, say hello to the kids at home.
Hello to the kids at home.
Hello, everybody. You're not getting roofied.
It's only 17th best, Nick.
There's some
We've got
above
an
us.
awesome show for you this week. We're actually diving into three really stellar books. Red Mother, #1 from Boom Studios, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #100 from IDW, and Superman #18, courtesy of DC. But before we get into all that awesomeness, first of all, here's Comic Watcher Show very own Scoop Johnson with the news.
All right, thanks, Matt. So we got a lot of some first looks, a lot of Marvel first looks, but we'll get into that later. First, some of the new books that are coming out. We just released on the site Image. Robert Kirkman and Chris Samney have a new book coming out. I believe May of 2020 is when that is due to release. It's called Firepower. So basically, the guy Owen Johnson goes to China to learn more about his past, to learn about his parents, and ends up a student at the local Shaolin Temple. And there he dives into the lost art of pretty much shooting fireballs and fire from his hands. So that's really all the release that Image sent out. But we do have that release on the site right now. A bunch of panels and pages. Looks really, really good. So definitely check that out. For fans of regular numbering, that would be me. Yeah, Wonder Woman and The Flash are going to go back to legacy numbering, starting with issue 750. So both those issues, or both those titles rather, and issue 750 are going to go back to regular numbering, which is really, really good. It's kind of like more aggravating than, universes rebooting every, 6 months. Let's see here. Boom Studios, King of Nowhere, is going to be a 5-issue miniseries, which is kind of cool. This guy Dennis awakens in pretty much the outskirts of this village, overran, just inhabited and overran by mutants. Unfortunately, has no idea where he is, how he got there, who he is. And then by the time he kind of figures it out, a bunch of conspiracies start unfolding, and looks pretty good. And then Marvel Outlawed, just seeing some of the media, like on Twitter and stuff like that, some people that are already talking about this one. Outlawed it's going to be a one-shot, and it's going to be dealing with young vigilantes, young superheroes. Are they old enough to be superheroes? Can they be trusted? It's being compared to like a Civil War-ish type of book, which I was reading more into it. Pardon me, because I do not have her name, but I think her last name is Dr. Ewing. The writer.
Eve Ewing.
Yes, Eve Ewing. Thank you very much. So she is kind of taking this on to where like a newer kind of weaving in and out what's the word I'm looking for? The current political climate type deal, and that's kind of how she's going to weave in. Does Miss Marvel, does Miles, can they handle it? What happened when the last time we gave, kids powers and type deals. There's also be more comments.
Get ready for several okay boomer jokes wedged in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that just screams for boomer jokes. But one of the comments that I kind of took note on is they were talking about how the plot line has a pretty good area to grow in, because at times we want the younger generation to kind of step up and take ownership and maybe lead us into the new way, but at the same time we kind of, they're just kids, what do they know? They're not. I get there's certain certain areas that's valid and certain areas that's not valid type deal. So Outlaw looks pretty good. It's a one shot. So, I'll probably pick it up just because, I'm a Miles Morales fan and stuff like that. And there's a pretty cool panel with Captain America in there, doing Captain America things and saying Captain America things. So alone, buy it for that. Excuse me. So moving on, we got some first looks on the site right now. Boom Studios, The Magicians 3. We got Marvel's Ghost Rider #3, sneak peek. Marvel's Miles Morales Spider-Man, another sneak peek. Of course, we got the sneak peek of Outlaw, which we already talked about. Doctor Doom 2099 1 is also up there. And brand new is Marvel's New Mutants #4 is up there as a sneak peek as well. Let's see, that's really about it for the news, unless you guys saw anything on the Twitter or anything that we need to add last minute. I do want to plug, and as I always try to do, is with the new commentaries and the new things always going up on the website. And I definitely want to give mention to Travis Koch's piece on DC Fontana that's on the site right now. I think that's part of his Patricia. I don't know if that might be part of his Patricia Highmarsh. That might just be a DC Fontana piece that he did. He has different quotes from a couple people, I think, from Comic Watch, and then a couple people that he knows around. But it's really, really beautifully written. It's really worth checking out. It's really good.
Yeah,
so,
if I can extend that plug a little bit, Travis Hedge Koch is a fantastically talented columnist that writes a weekly column for Comic Watch called Patricia High Smash, and he tackles all sorts of topics, things you'd never think about, writers, things that have perhaps been forgotten, and it's just beautifully written, intellectually well thought out, and it's always worth checking out Travis's work. It drops, a new column drops every Wednesday on the site, and it's very well worth your time to check out his work.
Absolutely, yeah, it's definitely one of the things that even when I first joined, earlier this year, that's one of the things that I constantly kept seeing being released, and it's even now it's still something that I always take the time to read. And you're right, he has a beautiful craft for doing that. It's really good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Matt, do you want to?
You got anything else, Mike? Do you have anything else for the news this week?
I might have a new segment for the news.
What? A new segment?
A new segment.
No.
Well, hang on to your pouches, folks, because this week in Liefeld, basically, this is what we're going to do. As someone, obviously, we all pretty much grew up in the 90s, so we know where he came from. We know where Image came from. We know what he's done and stuff. But, Rob has, I will say, he has a very distinct art. You know his stuff, whether you're a fan of his, whether you're not a fan of his, you know exactly who's drawing Supreme, who's drawing, Major X, Deadpool, whoever. But anyway, so what we're going to do is just kind of hit on, just Rob and his daily musings pretty much, because, he is an excellent follow on Twitter, even if you don't like him. Even if you hate his work, his feat or lack of thereof, his
man
Twitter
is not short on opinions.
No, on everything from
whether you agree with these opinions or not, they are very much evergreen on Twitter, and we're kind of noticing this trend where there's always something crazy going on with Rob Liefeld's Twitter feed, and then all the other news sites. They'll catch on to it, and this week he did something really special. Mike, talk about it, because this is fun.
As like I said, as I constantly keep up with his Twitter, he had tweeted out that he's never known defeat, and he wrote it out DA. I'm going to take that as a shout out to the Bears, because it's Bears Packers week, but we'll get to that later. But he tweeted out he's never known defeat. And he tweeted out, defeat, and he tweeted a picture along with it of when he was drawing beasts Beast rather, and it was just pictures and close-ups of Beast's feet. Where the big joke is that obviously Rob can't draw feet, right? We've known it. I mean, a lot of his stuff is just from the waist down or the hips down.
Or the foot is strategically hidden behind a small pile of rubble.
Yeah, slightly narrow.
Yes.
Yeah, there's stiletto pumps that aren't that narrow, but But anyway, and so he was kind of for a change, sorry, he was kind of poking fun at himself, and he wasn't kind of going back and forth with people on his Twitter feed. And it was in a video that he had posted. I think it was on his Instagram, his Twitter, and he was just having fun with it. And so it's good, but it's definitely worth checking out. Whether he is, talking about Hoxpox and Hickman and Marvel, DC, something is always happening with Rob. Whether he is blocking people on Twitter or poor guy talking about Terrific LLC and all that stuff. That's always a great read, by the way.
Picking fights with people on Twitter, trolling people on Twitter, talking mad shit on Twitter. Liefeld things.
Yeah, Liefeld things.
But yeah, we're gonna keep up with this on a weekly basis because it's a fun little phenomenon, and nothing malicious or mean spirited about this intended at all. Just what, Rob, we love you, big guy. You've got a big mouth and a lot of things to say, and by God, we're gonna have some fun with it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And if I can say, it is pretty nice to do this because it is actual news for me. He blocked me a couple of months ago, so I haven't been able to follow any of that feed. So this is a great news segment.
That's good. That's good.
Educational, even for the cast of the show.
Yeah. And if at any time, if you want to, we can Skype, and if I can always give you updates on his news, it's fine. That's fine.
I'm okay.
We're not that much of a time difference. It's fine.
No. 1 hour.
1 hour.
Well, Mike, is that about it for news, or is there anything else?
I think that's about it. Like I said, unless you guys seen anything else on Twitter, or I was checking the schedule. I don't think anything's getting published by us now. But I think that is going to be the news. All for now.
Awesome. Thank you as ever, Scoop Johnson. So, getting into the books for the week, we've got a trio of awesomeness. There's one we knew we had to do. There was two we couldn't decide on, so we said, the hell with it. We're just going to cover 3 books. Let's go buck wild. Up first, Red Mother, #1 from Boom Studios. It is written by Jeremy Hahn, art by Danny Luckert. Red Mother is a horror series very much in vogue right now, as Nick would be more than happy enough to tell us. And it tells the story of Daisy, a 20-something young woman. She's out on a date with her boyfriend, Luke. All of a sudden, Luke is sucked into a dark, crypt, coffin, wall, door, some kind of a thing with darkness, and disappears. And in the process of him disappearing, she gets her eye ripped out pretty horrifically. She wakes up. Luke is presumed missing. And she gets a new prosthetic eye to make her, have 2 eyes again. And all of a sudden, she begins to be haunted by visions of a horrific skeleton-like creature haunting her as the skies and the world around her turn red. Very, very cool stuff. Nick, you're our horror guru. What do you have to say about Red Mother?
Ooh, Tations is the guru here. But it was actually a really great story. I was surprised. There's a lot of excitement around it. That's already went back for 3rd printing, I think. Mm-hmm. So I think, there was a lot of expectations around it. And when I dove into it, I wasn't sure what to expect. I haven't read a lot from Jeremy Hahn or Danny Luckert, so I didn't know what to expect creatively. And they pulled off something pretty interesting, actually. When the horror is there, it's actually really vivid, and they don't pull any punches with it, so I was excited at that. But it doesn't, it's just not a gore fest or anything like that. It's well-paced, so the characters develop pretty well, and horror is just fundamental with this. You have to get the emotions right and these characters, established in this world. Otherwise, you don't really care about her eye getting ripped out or anything like that. It's how they build this story and how it's set up. But ultimately, the best thing they do is withhold information in this way that's it's definitely reminiscent of classic horror stuff. And when I think of Lovecraft, it's very Lovecraftian in its way that, there's this monster that's lurking around and that's wreaking havoc on these characters, but you only get glimpses of it and you don't really know what's going on. You're kind of in the dark, just like these characters. They don't approach the story in a way that fills you in on everything that's happening, and then you watch the main character realize it or discover what's unfolding. You're very much in the dark on this. I went back to the solicitations and trying to figure out what's going on with her visions, and there's just no information. The only thing that we get is maybe that she's getting these visions through her prosthetic eye. And I thought that was something that's interesting because I did think she was getting haunted after this event that took her partner, that pretty serious things were happening, and that's the loss that goes on there. And that's, what's kicking her story off and what's spurring her on. But ultimately, it was the lack of information that made this horror work. It's the mystery and, the terror around what's around the corner, and they don't just give everything all in one issue. So it's definitely going to pull me back for the second issue, but that also hurts it because I'm not sold on just putting this on my pull list right now. It's not a first issue that, I have to just complete this whole series. I really just want to read the next issue to see what's going on here, because it's a cool enough setup, but it's not something that, I don't feel like it's a full complete story or an introduction even. It's everything that you get out of the solicitation, and that's pretty much it.
It's definitely... It definitely has first issue itis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in a way that, you expect a setup, but I want to finish this book and say I have to see exactly where these characters are going to end up, not what's happening right now. And for that reason, it's just, I was a little disappointed in it, but for the most part, it's a great horror story. I mean, it is almost a renaissance of horror in comics right now. There's so many to choose from. So when you hear somebody talking about a great horror comic, you almost have to take it with some skepticism because there are so many out, it's hard to hit them all. But this is definitely one that you'll want to check out. And we'll be talking about the next issue because of the way this one's structured. The next issue is going to have just as much of an impact as this one. My only worry is the 3-issue slump. A lot of these horrors now, they take 2 issues to develop, and by issue 3, the narrative weight hits, and then it's kind of forced to catch up, and, we'll see what happens. I think this is a great startup, and looking forward to see where it goes from here.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to definitely give Mike a chance to talk here, but just kind of to respond to something you were saying, like, it hits a lot of the right horror notes, and it made me think of both Gideon Falls #1 and Witches #1 from Scott Snyder and Jock, in that it did a really good job of setting mood and tone, but and it to a degree it leaves you wanting more because you want to know what the hell's going on. So I mean, I'm willing to see where it goes. Mike, what did you think about it?
I think for me, my favorite part of the book was the art. I thought the art was really well done. The story itself, I have questions, and I think you hit it right when you said this definitely has first issue itis. There was just a lot of things that didn't feel like they were kind of like trying too hard in certain things. I thought the suspense part of it was really good.
Yeah.
They kind of just. It's a good page turner, it does set up well, but Nick hit it right on the head. With a lot of horror comics, by the time you get to issue 3, issue 4, you're kind of like, it's a snooze fest. Yeah, they already did everything.
Right. Trying to float already.
Yeah, there's nothing left. For
lack of a better term.
Right. But with this one, I'm interested in the story. Like, this demonic eye, and like my biggest question is I'm reading this, I'm going, why not just take the eye out? You know, if the eye's giving you bad visions, take it out, throw it away. Now, if it goes to like the Chucky Annabelle and it kind of comes back, then you're screwed and you just got to live with the eye and you got to find out how to deal with it. But I thought the ending was really cool. When she's walking down the street and she has like these visions and all of a sudden she's face to face with this demon, this monster, whatever it is. But can this type of story last? You know, is this something that, you know, you see going, you know, 20, 30, however many with still being fresh, you know, and makes you want to keep going back to read The Red Mother. I mean, I'll probably go 3 issues just to kind of keep up with it. Who knows? The next issue might be the one that, you know, gets me hook, line, and sinker to keep coming back for more. But if issue 2 is kind of remnant of 1 and the pace of 1 and kind of just leaves you asking the same questions, then I'll probably just stop at 2 and maybe collect, you know, see a trade if it lasts that long, if they do collect it. But I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it just kind of like what Nick said, I don't see me putting this on my pull, but I do see me maybe going to the shelves and going, oh, hey, do you have Red Mother, you know, 3 or Red Mother 4? Oh, you don't? Oh, okay, I'll just, you know,
I'll buy this X-Men comic. It's cool.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. But yeah, no, like I said, it wasn't terrible. There's definitely worse comics out there. But it was okay. It was decent for a first issue for a, you know, horror comic.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you kind of just got to the inadvertently got to the heart of the matter for me. Is it's definitely, you know, it's a horror comic, and horror as a genre is narratively driven. Like the individual characters matter less than the setting and the tone and just, you know, the story in and of itself. Well, I tend, anyway, to be more of a character-focused reader. You know, I want to be able to love these characters and be intrigued with their world. And if you're gonna try to sell me with the story as the hook, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. It needs to have a really, really strong hook. And again, Gideon Falls, witches. Undiscovered country, not horror, but same thing.
Right.
And this one, I mean, it's got a good concept. I think it's gonna. I think I see enough skill on the page, both in terms of writing and the art, where it's gonna be an interesting story. And I think if you did sit down and read the first arc, or, you know, however much, you would end it satisfied. I don't think it lived up to the hype, though. I mean, there's a lot of indie hype on various books going on right now for one reason or another, because everybody's looking for the next saga. And that's resulted in a lot of this early hype, you know, first and second printing selling out. Well, what does that really mean? Because, you know, I was talking to my LCS guy about this, and he's like, yeah, it doesn't mean jack all for him, because he's going to order the same amount of issues regardless. He'd ordered 4 copies of Red Mother. 1 was for a pull sheet. 1 was sold just to a random person that came in the store, and the other 2 were sitting on shelf. So, I mean, that in and of itself is kind of an industry bubble type thing that we're seeing right now in the indie world. And that's not great. And you know, I personally have a tendency probably to get on people's nerves when I start grumbling like an old man about not wanting to get on hype trains about things. But I've seen these bubbles come and pass. And I mean, we're living in such an awesome moment for indie comics. I promise you, there has never been a better time in the history of comics for the indie scene, not even in the highly loved and remembered 80s with the black and white boom. And I don't want to see good books like Red Mother fall by the wayside because of these sales bubbles. Nick, did you have a thing to say about that? I'm sorry, I rambled.
No, definitely. I think you make a good point about the distinction between setting-driven and character-driven stories. But I think a maybe more relevant comparison is The Walking Dead for what the indie comics are wanting to create. because they do this hook where, you know, it's zombie apocalypse and you know what you're going into, but the real pull of The Walking Dead was the character drama. It was always, you know, it was always the
Absolutely.
interactions. And I
Absolutely.
think Red Mother is really not relying on a hook like the zombie apocalypse. They're really approaching this character-driven story in a way that speaks to this renaissance of horror almost that you see across all mediums. That's TV, movies, comics. They've all kind of gotten away from the slasher cheap B horror, and they're taking a much more refined approach to storytelling and using horror as a catalyst for human drama. And I think Red Mother does that. You know, that's why you spend a lot of time getting to know their relationship with Daisy and her partner at first. So
Yeah,
that loss is a
they
lot
have a
more
cute
extreme.
dynamic going on before Luke is sucked into the abyss or whatever it is that happens to him.
Yeah,
They
definitely. I
definitely
think
do.
it's like almost frustrating that you don't know more about what's going on, but you know a lot about the characters and what they're feeling and what they're experiencing in this situation. And that's kind of all you have to go on.
Well, and I
And
will
that
say,
is where the horror
I'm
lives.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Page in there, and hats off to Danny Luckert on the art. I believe it's a 9-panel grid of different moments of her trying to live her life and then reliving the moment, the moment that everything changed, and it keeps cutting back and forth between those two, and it's just so well executed.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, shame on us. We haven't talked about the art at all, but I absolutely loved it. It's got a clean look, which is a little unusual in my experience for a horror comic, but it works really well here because it makes the horror elements jump out that much more.
Exactly. It really adds to it because it's like even when he's going down this, you know, the pit, the sewer, you know, whatever. I mean, you really, and there wasn't a whole lot of words going on with it, but you really kind of felt in like you were in that panel. Another part that I enjoyed was the hospital part where the detectives were kind of, you know, interviewing her and kind of you didn't have that information to go back of like, you know, what else, you know, we needed more information. Oh, sorry, there is no more information. But it just like, even with like, you know, the art with the eye and then, you know, the demon and stuff like that was really, really well played and all that stuff.
I agree. I think ultimately there's a good story here. Maybe this issue could have been maybe 10 pages longer. I think, you know, I got to the end of the issue and I was like, wait, I'm already at the end? What the hell? I felt cheap. But I did want more. So I mean, to its credit, it did its job in that regard. You know, all things being equal, I do think this was a fine first issue. It did what it was supposed to do. Could it have done it a little better? Debatable, but maybe not as hype or not as up to the hype as it could have been. But not a bad comic by any means, and I do think that persistent reading will pay big dividends in the long run. So yeah. That was Red Mother #1 from Boom Studios. Next up, we have got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #100 from IDW. This is definitely a comic that is for the 90s kid in all of us. This is written by Kevin Eastman, Bobby Curnow, and Tom Waltz. The art was by Dave Wachter and Michael excuse me if I mispronounce this, Dialinus. There is a hell of a lot of crazy stuff going on in this double-sized anniversary issue. We got Ninja Turtles, we've got Giant Dragons, we've got Headless Shredder, we've got a little tiny dude in a robot body, but it's not Krang, it's not a brain. We've got mutant bombs and turtles that are getting evil turtles that are getting controlled by Casey Jones' dad, and whoa, hey. Hit the brakes. This was crazy. Mike, take the wheel, man. This was in a good way, the best way.
In a good way, yeah. So this is wrapping up City at War. I'm sorry. It's been going on for 8 issues, and there is a lot of stuff that is going on in this issue. I mean, that is minor compared to what I think the overall message is. But to start off, really, you got Old Hob, who let off the mutagen bomb. So now you have all these mutanimals going around. So, Steve from down the street is a pigeon who's trying to cook food for everybody in these camps and stuff like that. And then another story is Raph is dealing with kind of helping Old Hob with the bomb and the detonation, but he stopped a little way when he realized what he was doing. Dealing with Bishop, which is the guy with the little alien, guy, the not Crane guy. And so you got Mike and Donatello dealing with the orphanage, trying to get the kids off the planet so they can save them. Casey dealing with his father, which is kind of cool. If for folks that have read through the series, or you may or may not know the story, Casey's father was abusive, and so Casey was always dealing with that. That's what kind of brought Casey and Raph together, because Raph kind of saved Casey. And so we see Casey's dad kind of, I want to say, I guess, like, come to a senses. Okay, this isn't the way I want to live my life type deal. Ends up taking a bullet for Casey so Casey can live, and his dad kind of perishes, and they make amends right then and there. And then we're dealing with Splinter breaking free from the Rat King, which was back in issue 99, the tail end of 99. And that's where kind of the story for me kind of centers in. Like, towards the end of the book, we're not even really concerned with the mutagen bomb and Old Hob. And, we get a couple of panels of the orphanage, which was a big to do a couple issues back. But once Splinter realizes what he has to do to get rid of, Kitsune and stuff like that, and kind of save the world, because this is really the only thing that's going to end the war. And so he meditates on it, he sacrifices himself, and we see the message, going back to the couple of panels with Raph and Leonardo, where Leonardo kind of snaps Raph out of his kind of rage, dealing with Bishop and everything like that. But it was good. I think this issue for me kind of sits almost like a metaphor for Eastman, Waltz, and Kernow, because this is the last book that creative team is going to work on.
Now, Mike, if I can just ask a question, has Kevin Eastman been co-writing this book from the start, from number one?
From number one, yeah. Eastman, Waltz, and Kernow. This team has been since issue one. Now, there's been obviously multiple. They've had like other writers and numerous artists and cover artists. Eric Larson did a few covers in the early stages. I think in the first 10, 12, he had like one or two covers that he did. But this team has been together pretty much the whole 100 issues.
Wow.
Oh, excuse me again. So for me, I think and then of course at the, I guess, minor spoiler, I mean, it's really all over the internet now, but with Eastman and Laird teaming up again for The Last Ronin. So that's what Kevin Eastman is going to go do. He's going to leave Turtles with Sophie Campbell. She's going to take over writing, starting issue 101. And Kernow, I'm not sure what Kernow is getting ready to do. I don't think he's coming back to the book immediately. The only one that stated that they're not coming back is Waltz. So I think, I mean, it could just be me. I could be overthinking it, but I think this is a minor, metaphor, that we're not upgrading. It's kind of like driving like a 1982 Corolla, right? That's still going. You still want to drive it, but do you want to keep driving a 1982 Corolla? You drive a 2020 Corolla type deal. You know what I'm saying? So you're getting that brand new shiny car. You're going to come back to it, but something good though. I think, with the Old Hob with the mutagen bombs and stuff like that. I think probably going to see something like that. Probably pick up with that story maybe in 101. But just that panel and kind of what we were talking about earlier before the show was that panel where Shredder is holding Splinter and coming out, and they reveal that Splinter pretty much sacrificed himself for the world to end the war and stuff like that. It's hugely powerful. And kind of to pause that story to tell this story, I was writing my review for this issue, and I almost found myself like reflecting, starting from as a kid, and kind of now, because it's like you said, I mean, what 90s kid didn't have turtles, have some type of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? And then when IDW picked up the series, it was just great story after great story after great story. And to see it kind of, this was, pretty much 8 years in the making with issue 100. And I really couldn't think of, an unfortunate better way to start a new era of Turtle books and Turtle stories, especially with Sophie Campbell, because I think she came in, midway through the series. So she's done the Turtles before, so she's familiar with them. So definitely in good hands with her. And I think it was good. I just think that, a great underlining story of family above all else. Like you said, you had the panels with the orphanage, and the part with Casey and his dad, I'm gonna say it again, I thought was really, really powerful stuff, just knowing what him and his dad has kind of been through and what they wrote with him and stuff like that. But I'm rambling on, so I'm gonna hand it off to you guys. Matt, what did you think overall?
Well, despite coming in with no clue as to what was going on, I found myself very pleasantly surprised. And the thing that struck me about this was this is a Ninja Turtle comic that is written for people our age, without necessarily losing what makes the Turtles who and what they are. There's a ton of just mature themes and concepts going on throughout here that was really striking. Like, I finished reading this, and my first thought is, wow, I need to go back and get the trades on this series, because this is exceptionally well done. Yeah. It's not just a slew of fan service. There's nobody, making silly jokes about pizza. It's none of that. I mean, it legitimately treats this property with a reverence and a maturity that I just was not expecting. Hats off to everybody involved. IDW especially, because the Turtles property has bounced around for years. You mentioned Eric Larson earlier, and I remembered suddenly, in the 90s, the Turtles were published through his little wing of Image, and they crossed over with Savage Dragon a few times. Yep. And I know they've bounced around other places since then. So, man, there's not a whole lot I can add to what you had to say, other than, this wasn't new reader friendly, but my God, it's part 8 of a story, and it's issue 100. I wouldn't expect it to be. So for the fact that I could come in knowing that and get as much enjoyment out of it as I did says something very, very strongly about the quality of this comic. Man, if you're like me and you grew up with the Turtles and maybe resisted the call of nostalgia for one reason or another, this is just an awesome series that you need to go back and check out. Most definitely. Nick, what did you have to say about it?
Yeah, so I can take it a step farther, and I have had zero experience with the Ninja Turtles. It was something that I never found an entry into the franchise. There are the rebooted movies. There are a lot of comics. The animated shows are probably the biggest pool. I've seen some of the different animation styles. I'm like, I should check that out. I might be into that. But honestly, I'm kind of glad that I at least started with a comic and to see what the Ninja Turtles are actually about. Of course, everybody knows the story. of who the Ninja Turtles are. Everybody knows these characters. I particularly knew Casey Jones because of Stephen Amell coming over from Arrow in to play the role. I didn't see the movie, but I followed everything with that role. But I came into the issue 100 knowing it was a pretty epic issue for them, and they have been building to it for a long time, so I understand the scope of it. And I thought they pulled it off really well. For it to be so not new reader friendly, it was a great jumping on point for me because it was a great way to get me interested in this story because it's a lot more serious than I would have assumed before I went into it. I thought it would be kind of lighthearted, and it was the opposite.
Yeah.
No, just
It's heavy.
Like it's
a
heavy and
comic.
it really is. It's epic. It's really large scale. There are consequences, and there's great character work here. I mean, the interactions with it, everything revolves around family. It's mentioned quite a few times in the comic, and I understand what they're driving home with this theme, but the climactic death at the end is the resolution of this like importance of family where everybody's standing there and it's that loss and what it brings and sacrifice and togetherness. So they really capture some great themes for a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic. Never would have thought before today, this is what I'm thinking. But they did a great job. I thought, the dragon looks awesome. The artwork is just powerful. I thought some of the character depictions were a little weaker. I thought, maybe they had gotten a little better at drawing turtles than people. So some of the, I guess in this book it's okay. I can accept that. So outside of that, I mean, I think Mike hit a lot of it on the head. I haven't really followed this series, so I'm sure the build up to this has been worth it because this resolution seems like a really rewarding payoff. If even somebody that hasn't followed it can jump in and just be like, wow, this is a great book. I'm sure, like Matt said, the rest of the trades have got to be worth it. Like, it's got to be worth catching up on. So who knew? Catch up on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Hey, man. Power to you. Power to us all. Mike, any final thoughts on this? This is a really massive, monumental passing of the torch kind of an issue, man.
Yeah. Just to kind of hit on when you were talking about how it wasn't like, the lighthearted Turtles. I think for me, another like huge stepping stone for the series was in issue 95 when Jenica, she got stabbed by Karai, and I think issue 94, it carried over into 95 and to where Leo kind of did a blood transfusion, if you will, into Jenica to save her, and that gave us our first female turtle.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm glad you touched on that because I was a little lost.
Right. And so the odd thing is since her first appearance, her and Casey kind of had like a mild love interest type deal. They got feelings with each other. So the issues after that, how they kind of dealt with that in a tasteful way, kind of squashed, that love interest and just they were friends now, but they understood. And it was just one of those. I found myself kind of going, so that's how they're okay. That's heavy. Okay,
they're laws against that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, see, that's where the West Virginia, regular Virginia comes in. I'm the regular Virginia.
Okay, I gotcha. I shan't make that mistake again.
Exactly. So, but no, that was just one of those. Then early on in the series, Casey dealing with his father, it was just one of those. As you said, I mean, this just dealing with very adult and heavy, real, sans, mutated love interest for turtles, but just dealing with, just real issues. Don't spit that out, Nick, by the way. Dealing with those issues. Definitely not the turtles we grew up with, but yeah, I mean, check out the trades. Issue 93 started City at War, so if you didn't want to go all the way back, if you want to just pick up with City at War, it's issue 93. But yeah, it's been one of my favorite series. The Turtles have been a constant thing since I was a kid. So they're run through Archie Comics and the old Mirage Studios and their time at Image. All that stuff is really great, so it's worth a read, definitely.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 100 from IDW. And now, all right, spoilers are on in a major, major way. More so than us not warning you that Splinter died.
Yeah.
Whoops. We're getting into DC Comics Superman number 18 by Brian Michael Bendis and Ivan Reis. This is the big one, folks. Superman is revealing to the world that he is Clark Kent. Period. Full stop. This is not an imaginary story. This is not an alternate reality. This is happening. And Bendis has kind of been building up to this for a little while. It touches off. There's a couple things that informed this story going into it. First one was Superman's father Jor-El and all his myriad secrets and just really rubbing the Man of Steel the wrong way. And secondly, and a little less directly as reflected in this particular issue, but Event Leviathan. That series was all about no more secrets getting exposed. You know, the all the world spy agencies are getting taken down by the Manhunter, I guess. That's another conversation. But you know, this has all kind of led Superman to do some soul searching and do some reflecting and look at his, you know, where he is and where he's come from and how long he's been Clark Kent and Superman, living two separate lives, and then seeing his son, John, go off to the 31st century to join the Legion of Superheroes, and just kind of realizing that it's maybe it's time to change. Maybe I don't have to necessarily be keep these two sides of my life separate from one another anymore. So he embarks to announce to the world at a giant press conference who he is. Of course, he takes care of business and talks to Jimmy Olsen and Kara and Perry White first before telling this. Oh, of course, all the familiar faces that you'd be expecting. But end of the issue, Genie's out of the bottle. Nothing in the DC universe is ever going to be the same again. Guys, hit me. What did you think? This was a big one.
Sure. I guess I'll go ahead and dive into this because I was not excited to hear what was going on. There are essentially three personas, sides of this character that you have in Clark Kent and Superman and Kal-El. And you have all of these different mythos and upbringings and culture that impact this character. And at a time where, you know, it seems like they're trying to bring the character back to his roots at the Trunks and all of this exploring his origin, that Bendis is making his mark on the character. And I thought, you know, this is just some way for him to say, I did this important, significant moment in Superman's history. And, you know, you can tie this to my run here. And it's significant for significance sake. And I thought there's almost no way to get around that. Like you said, it's always going to be the same, where now nothing's ever going to be the same again because of this one thing that Bendis did. And that, I guess, it kind of felt like it betrayed the legacy of the character for me and what it had established and what he was going to do to it, and just say, you know, I'm going to take this and just totally throw it by the wayside. But reading the issue, I think he did it in a way that was tactful, that he approached it in a way that suited the character, and then by the end of it, I bought it. So, you know, kudos to Bendis in his wordy dialogue style. He found something particular in it, and I thought this is amazing Superman stuff. I mean, Superman speeches are brilliant. That's, you know, one of the best part of some of his comics are just listening to his worldview and his approach on these subjects. It's not just him punching baddies. I want to hear Supes talk. And he has this line, if I can take a second. He says, for a long time, I've kept this big part of myself a secret. And there were good reasons. But for a while, I'm trying to empower others towards truth and justice. My life as Clark Kent is something I'm deeply proud of, and keeping it secret today that feels false, almost dishonest. So no more. And I thought he touched on something that's happening right now. and hiding in fake news and secrecy and not operating in a way that's, upheld to the public eye. And I think that's something that Superman is asking the public and what he's doing with the world. And then he feels like now he's not doing it himself. The world has changed rapidly. It's not the world that he grew up in, or that we grew up with him in, is maybe more accurate. But the way Bendis approached it, it wasn't dishonest to the legacy of the character. It was actually true to it. And I think that's an awesome way to put a perspective in this industry, in that these books, the way they're ordered, the way that they have to be sold, we find out this news long before it happens. So we have to sit on this information of knowing what's coming, and then see how it plays out. So like, I'm developing all these feelings about it, and then I can watch it unfold in a way that feels true to the character. And that's awesome. That's something that's really cool, and I think it'll hold up well because of that. This is an issue you can just pick up. You're flipping through the long boxes in like 10 years and you come across this issue. You can buy this issue and go home and enjoy it. And this is the moment where Superman reveals his alter ego identity of Clark Kent. And this changes journalism in the DC universe forever. This has massive impacts on that. This changes Superman's role as a hero. This changes everything. And you can't rely on that significance. It has to be tied to a fundamental human trait of Superman, because that is Superman, humanity. And for him to stand there and say, that feels false, in keeping this false narrative from you and hiding this part of me and keeping it secret while being a journalist, while being a hero and asking you to empower truth and justice. It's a realization of this world today that you're not going to get 10, 20 years ago. It's just not going to happen. The climate doesn't allow that to happen. And this was a way to capitalize on that climate, and he pulled it off really well. Of course, the art's stunning. It's fantastic, but I have to just harp on this story because that's what we're all going to be talking about. Everything else helps it hold up, but the execution is where this one turned it around, in my opinion. And, what Bendis is doing with Superman, it's just great work.
Awesome. Really well said. Mike, what about you? What'd you think about the big reveal?
For me, I'm not the world's biggest Superman fan. I mean, I dig him, but I definitely get my Superman like in trades and stuff like that. But when Bendis started doing Superman, being more of a Bendis fan than what I am a Superman fan, I was kind of like, do I read? Do I not read? So up until this point, I've been kind of playing with the series, an issue here, an issue there. I thought this was really good. I mean, Nick pretty much kind of hit it. I mean, my biggest question is, where does this leave DC as a whole? I mean, this doesn't just affect Superman. I mean, this is everything. I will say at times it felt like, you could almost feel his burden that he was carrying. Like, he couldn't do it anymore. Like Superman being this all-powerful God type deal. And we've seen him come back from, death after death. We've seen epic battles where he is, we were almost doomed to watch him, fall, but he always prevails. So to see him kind of almost take on a small speck of vulnerability to reveal this and kind of say, I'm done with this, I can't do this anymore, was humbling almost. And I'm definitely going to hang on for the next couple of issues because, like, I want to see what happens, and I want to see if maybe this goes outside of the Superman books. Maybe, if there's going to be another DC title that kind of touches on, the big reveal. There's at times where I felt bad for Supes. I was like, is my man going to make it out of this? He's just going to kind of sit in his room and listen to Joy Division all day because he can't make it through, But yeah, I mean, I felt bad for the guy because I was like, I read this comic. I mean, I read this, probably this and obviously, TMNT 100. I've read like 3 or 4 times because I really, I felt bad for Supes, because like I said, you feel his burden. But I gotta say, for me, other than the reveal, I absolutely loved the end of the book where Lex is getting yelled at, one, by Brainiac, because that takes me back to, like, you're at a meeting at work and a coworker screwed up and the boss is yelling at him and everyone else is kind of like, oh, did you see what he did? Lex missed out again, and so just like the last couple of panels where you felt the intensity and the art of Lex, like, what, like how did I screw this up? Like, how did you miss this guy?
This let me touch on that. This is a direct attack on Lex Luthor's ego.
Yeah, oh, absolutely it is.
And you don't attack Lex in any way that makes him look small. Doesn't sit.
No, and I think for me, that's one of the draws to kind of hang on for the next couple of issues to kind of see where this goes, because, like, you could just feel his anger, as you felt, Superman's vulnerability and you felt his weight carrying this. You felt Lex's anger and like what is he going to do? What's the next chapter? But this book was good. I enjoyed it far more than what I thought. I read it once and I was kind of like, okay, it's a Superman title, but then I don't know, it was kind of like a calling or something. I was like, well, let me flip through it again, and I kind of started just kind of ingraining myself into the panels, into the message, and really kind of digging into it. And it was good. I thought it was a great Bendis story. I mean, Nick touched on it. The art was really well drawn book. But yeah, I never thought I would say, like, I'm probably going to add this to my pool for the next couple issues or something to make sure I get a couple issues. And yeah, I haven't really felt this excited about a Superman title probably in years. But yeah, this is really good. I enjoyed it, and definitely really want to see how this impacts DC. See if this crosses over into other books. Definitely well worth a read. Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. I want to start by saying I don't think anybody could have guessed just how in tune with Superman Bendis would be as a writer. He's known for his snarky characters and rat-a-tat-tat dialogue and kind of flipping, not just even flipping conventions on their head, but shrugging them off, a little bit. But he understands Superman as a character as well as any of the other great writers, you can think of when you're talking about Superman. And say what you will about his personal style, his decompressed, storytelling, this, that, and the other, the surplus of dialogue, whatever. There is absolutely no denying that this is a hugely impactful issue. Hugely. It is written almost delicately in the way that Superman is speaking his truth. And it's intercut with these wonderfully emotional sequences. The silent page with Perry White, where he reveals who he is, and Perry gets up from his desk and he's hugging him like a proud father, And that page probably got me more than anything else, to be perfectly honest. It was so well done. The fact that it was silent,
the structure of it. If you see Perry, he's sitting down and starts to stand up, and then whenever he pulls it open, he falls back down.
Yeah.
And there's no dialogue or anything. It's for Bendis. This is powerful.
Oh, so powerful. And it was perfect for Perry White. And then you have the Jimmy Olsen sequence where Jimmy Olsen's pranking him, and so I just see Superman wearing Clark Kent's. That was hilarious and just so perfect. And oh yeah, Lois told me this morning. It's cool. Yeah, I love that. There were so many. This whole issue is one long character beat for everybody involved, including Lex. The last couple pages where he's being chastised by Brainiac, Mike, you just hit it on the head. Like, his ego has been bitch slapped by this reveal. Like, how could you, Lex Luthor have not seen this for all these years. Oh, Lex. Yeah, things are not going to get better for Superman for a very long time. You know, Bendis likes to stick on comics for a very long while, and it's good when he's got a plan. He obviously has a long-term plan going on here and in Action Comics. I love that. You know, and to a degree, I don't know that we actually should be all that surprised by the fact that he did away with the secret identity, because the man does not like secret identities. You know, he made his big mainstream mark on Daredevil in the early 2000s, and that series hinges on Matt Murdock's identity getting revealed. Now, the circumstances of it are very different than here. And the way that the protagonists respond couldn't be more diametrically opposed. As a matter of fact, Matt Murdock is kind of crappy about it and flat out denies. And it becomes this really cool look where it's like, yeah, everybody knows, but they don't know. And with Superman, it's all out in the open. All out in the open, you know, no secrets, no secret identities. And I just think it's perfect for this character. Do I think that this is going to be now the death knell of secret identities throughout the DC universe? No. You know, Batman's not going to reveal that he's Bruce Wayne to the world, et cetera, et cetera. But, man, this is just fundamental shift for the entire DC universe. Because DC thrives on a classicism amongst their heroes. And having the biggest, most classic hero of them all doing away with the secret identity fundamentally alters the fabric of the DC universe. Because the DC universe hinges on one thing from the very beginning, and that is that nobody can tell that is Superman with a pair of glasses on. If you pull that thread, the entire DC universe collapses, okay? I'm convinced of this. And now that thread is gone. So what does that really look like? I don't know, but I really, really can't wait to find out. Hats off to Ivan Reis. He is an amazing talent. His page layouts in this are just awesome. You know, more than just his line work. There's so much ingenuity going on with the way that he lays things out. The man can't be touched. He just can't. He's like a Neil Adams for modern times. Sorry, Jason Fabok. I know you're gunning for that slot, and you got a really similar style, and it's really awesome. But it's also taking you like 4 years to draw 3 Jokers, so no. Love you, bruh. But anyway, it's getting late. Matt's talking shit. No, little tangent there. My bad. But no, guys, I don't think the importance of this issue can be overstated. And who knows, maybe the next writer will find a way to put the genie back in the bottle. God knows Charles Soule put Daredevil's identity back under wraps with mystical whammies. So anything's possible. Hey, I loved it. For God's sake, read Superman. It's awesome. Guys, anything more? Okay. Well, hey, we're running long. Let's get this thing rolling. This was Superman number 18 from DC Comics. And that is it for our reviews for this week. It's time for our last little chat. What have you been reading? What are you looking forward to? Nick, take it away.
All right. So I guess what I've been reading, I'm going to go Batman and the Outsiders. I really started to dive into this. I caught up on Bryan Hill's run. And it's, divisive in the fan base, as is everything. So I wanted to honestly, I had to find more of the dynamic between Batman and Black Lightning. Okay. Because for some reason, their relationship is something that's just really piqued my interest. Because, they're both doing this vigilante thing, but Black Lightning seemed to have a more strict line of morals than Batman that clash in these really interesting ways because they're forced to team up so often. He's always like, I don't trust you. I don't like what you're doing. But, this is the mission. And there's always that underlying depth happening. So I went back to, I believe it's the 83 series from Barr and Aparo. Excuse me if I said that wrong. But it's kind of everything I wanted in the Batman the Outsider series. Really cool stuff. You've got, Katana, Metamorpho, Halo, which I've only been introduced through the Young Justice animated series, and she is a blonde white woman here in the comics, and she is not that in the animated series. She, I believe, is a Muslim woman. Teenage, they kind of kept the same story of her memory wipe and all that, so I knew the character, but it took a few pages before I was like, who is this? But and then of course you got Black Lightning and Batman, but that series I thought it holds up really well. The artwork is, it's of its time, but it's really well done. Yeah, it's just really well. I thought, it's not muddy. It's not something that it looks dated where it's not that appealing. It's it's great, and great artwork holds up. So it's fun to dive back into that. It's all on the DC Universe app, all available, and really cool stuff.
Interesting fact, real quick, that might pique your interest about that. Black Lightning creator Tony Isabella hates that series. He hates it. He is very vocal about the fact that he feels like Black Lightning should not be subordinate to Batman. He's his own man. He stands for something. He should not. So yeah, he really hates this.
He said the same thing about Brian Hill's new run too. That he should not be, like a sidekick, or I think he used a bit more graphic language.
I think he did too.
So I've noticed that, and to be honest, I went back and read the series. He said, if you want to read some Black Lightning, you should go back, and I think it's Cold Dead Hands that he did in 2017.
Yeah.
And to his credit, it was a well done story. I think it kind of went under the radar, and he has a voice for Black Lightning that you don't find anywhere else. And I get what he's doing, but the artwork on that one fell a little bit flat. The story was there, but the execution just wasn't quite as much. It's not going to hold up like this 83 stuff. Like, I mean, that stuff you can go back and like you're going to search for it and say this is awesome. But keeping on the DC thing, they have a crazy week coming up. I would just be remiss to not talk about it. My wallet hurts already. I've got a headache already. My reading stack is just crazy already. I'm gonna get to that. You've got Batman last night on Earth #3 that was delayed for a crazy long time. Same with Harleen #3 that also got delayed. Doomsday Clock #12 I believe is supposed to drop. If that's correct?
That is correct.
You never know. There's so much happening. You also have Batman 85 coming out, and I have not followed Tom King's run, but I do know that this is his last issue, and he's had a great impact on Batman, and Batcat's coming and all that. But Tynion the Fourth is coming to Batman, and I am ready. So this means that Batman's going back on my pull list. It's been quite a long time, but it's time. Like, he's going back on the pull list. Tom Taylor just had Tech 1017 that dropped. That was great. Got to check it out. I'm hyped for Batman. Tom King has his fans. They're sad to see him go. I'm ready for what's next, DC. Let's do it.
Awesome. Mike, what have you been reading? What are you looking forward to?
And real quick before we get into that, Nick, if it makes you feel better, all my Tom King Batmans have their own small box that I put way back in the closet. I still have them. They're still on my pull list. But it's kind of like that cousin at Thanksgiving, right? You acknowledge him, but he's really not part of the family. No, but probably the biggest thing that I've been reading that I've just gone back to that I was so jazzed about has been Venom 20. The ending with the Council of Deans, or the Council of Reeds, rather. I'm sorry. We finally dig into what Dylan is. He might be, a lot of big stuff going on there. I really think Hates is. I'm hoping, and not that Absolute Carnage was bad, because it was a good series, but I felt there were some issues, especially during the Venom run, where we could have got a little more in there. Not bad, but I just felt like he was just so kind of, drawn into Absolute Carnage that there were some issues in there I felt, didn't hit as big as these last couple of ones did. But now with 20, I just think that now we can get into what Dylan is. Is he that living symbiote? What is his next step? Who are the Council of Reeds and what do they want with him, and what Reeds, from what Earths? Who makes up this council? Which should be really good. What's that?
I know who the Council of Reeds are because they came from Hickman's Fantastic Four run. Bruh. It's all the Reeds from all the multiverse, and their charge is to, quote, solve everything. And they're kind of jerks about it, and they pissed off the Celestials, and then most of them got killed. So, that's them.
Yeah, they are from that run. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, they are.
Totally forgot about that. And what I'm most looking forward to is something that I've been absolutely addicted to is Count Crowley. Count Crowley #3 comes out, I believe, on the 18th, I believe. It's from David Dasmalchian. If you are into the ghoul 70s type of Sven Ghoulie type stuff. These old 70s B-roll movies. It's definitely a great book. The art is on point. The story is great. It really, each issue so far has left you on that proper cliffhanger to where you have to read it. Every page is a page turner. It just leaves you with wanting more. The characters, the main one, Jerry Bartman. She's pretty much just, she ruined her life with alcoholism and stuff like that. She's a failed reporter, but now she's the new Count Crowley, and now she's trying to figure out why these monsters are, chasing her. Why are they attacking her? She hates cats, but now in issue 2, she's befriended a cat, but now the cat has, starting to save her life and, kind of like be by her side type deal. So, it's kind of like one of those things, is the cat even really a cat? Because you kind of get this feeling, well, if all these other supernatural instances are happening around her, is the cat a cat? I'm waiting for this cat to be some type of wizard Gandalf type looking dude, with no teeth.
Maybe it's the Taylor Swift cat from Cats.
Ooh, good.
Never know.
I have to write that
Too
down.
cold water on your theories. I'm sorry. That movie looks absolutely terrifying to me. So,
but no, I really do think Count Crowley is such a good series. I only wish it wasn't 4. It's just a limited series from Dark Horse. It's going 4 issues. But for me, definitely, it's definitely been a huge story. If it was all in, if all 4 issues were in 2019, for me it would probably easily be like a story of the year type deal, because it's just that good. I think with David Dasmalchian's writing and Louis Kettner's art, it's just such a great combination. It's definitely one of those things where you got all the the single issues, but they package a really great trade, and you end up buying the trade as well. So, but yeah, Count Crowley definitely. If that's a huge plug for that book. It's such a great book right now.
Awesome. Dark Horse doing big things. So I have been reading the Bill Willingham run of Justice Society Oh America from 2009. He took over the book after Jeff Johns wrapped up his epic tour of duty. And I remember reading this. I got the first issue when it first came out, and I was just so high on Jeff Johns that my brain couldn't accept that somebody else was writing the Justice Society, and I dropped the book, and I was angry about it, but now I just love these characters so much that I thought, man, it's time to give this another chance, and it's great stuff. I love it. I've gotten through the first arc of the run so far, and these are super easy and cheap back issue buys, a couple bucks a piece. If you like the JSA, go back and check this out. It was a great run. What I'm looking forward to, Nick, you kind of stole my thunder a little bit because I was going to dive into DC's early Christmas presents for us for next week.
It is
a
Christmas.
huge week from DC. Wonder Woman Dead Earth, Harleen #3. You got Last Night on Earth #3. Something called Doomsday Clock #12, which is a year in the making. My wallet is already yelling at me over next Wednesday, and there's so much good stuff to look forward to. So, hell yeah, guys, I think we've reached the end. I think we've made it to the end of another episode. We went a little longer than we meant to, but hey, there were 3 really awesome comics to talk about. I'm Matt. This is Nick. This is Mike. We are the Comic Watchers, coming at you from comic-watch.com, where everything is pro news and fan reviews written by fans for fans. Guys, this was episode 57. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next week where it's all about Doomsday Clock.